Hello friends, and welcome back to Figure Study, where NemeSeptember rolls on with a look at Transformers Armada Nemesis Prime. This guy was a bit tricky to track down for a decent price, and ultimately I do not think I paid a decent price for him, but hey, when I first got him it was still sealed on card for only slightly more than what I was willing to pay for a loose used copy, so I'll count that as a win. But yes, today we are looking at this thing. And before we look at this thing, we're going to look at this thing. This is his Minicon called Runover, I believe, and it is a strange beige-looking jet thing. There is some nice tiny detail in there, not a whole lot going on with paint. It's pretty much just the orangey red for the cockpit section there. And then for the robot mode face, there's a little bit there, which we'll see later. But yeah, it's pretty much just tan plastic with a little bit of this kind of grayish blue and black for the wheels and hinges. We are going to go ahead and transform him into a robot and then into his gun mode just to get that stuff out of the way off the bat. So, I'm going to fold the wings back, and I'm just going to go through it because, you know, it's a simple thing. Pop out these little bits that will become the arms, and then rotate them back around, bring them forward a tiny bit, and split the legs just because they can, and bring down the nose cone section. And there we have Run Over in his robot mode, and it's not a terrible looking Minicon robot mode. This is particularly and I wish that this kind of hinged down further to fill in the chest there a little bit, but, you know, it's a Minicon, it's meant to be really simple and straightforward. I like how the split for the legs works, though. It's such a simple little thing, and it's not exactly useful articulation, but it goes a long way to really driving home that point of him being a bipedal humanoid robot. And from the front, when you don't see how ridiculous this is, it doesn't really look that bad, actually. It looks kind of neat. Teeny tiny face. He's got some of that orangey red for his visor. I'm hoping that's focusing. And the head itself looks pretty decent. It's actually kind of, I guess, normal looking for a Minicon, which is kind of a surprise because I always thought most Minicons, at least in the earlier lines, looked kind of like nondescript robot things that may not have sentience, though I think they did have sentience in the cartoon. But anyway, yeah, Runover's robot mode, not too shabby. But we are going to turn him back into a jet real quick, because he also has his third mode, which is a gun. And I have to say, I respect the fact that this toy pulls triple duty as a vehicle, a robot, and a weapon. For the weapon mode, all we gotta do is flip the wings down this way now. It's before we flip them up, now flip them down, and flip back the tail fin to give them a little handhold grip thing. And if you look at it from the underside, there is a gun barrel molded in place there, so that's what makes him work as a gun. And it's not great, but hey, it's functional. So now that we're done looking at that thing, let's take a look at this thing. And this truck mode is strange. It's kind of this chunky, puffy thing. It's very lumpy and kind of a bizarre shape, in particular how it flares out up here and in the front a little bit. A very wide wheelbase, though the front tires are sticking out a little bit further than the back tires. It's okay. It's a truck. It's, I guess, cleaner than some of the other Optimus Primes or Nemesis Primes that turn into trucks, in that the feet kind of fold down in a less obvious way. And the robot junk is covered up reasonably well on the underside. That's actually kind of a surprise. But it's mostly the stuff going on up here that I'm not super into. The shape of the cab is a little bit Also, instead of being black, he's more like an extremely dark gray, because you can see the tires are black. That is definitely not black, but it still works. And it vaguely gets across that Nemesis color scheme, because you've got the not quite black with the metallic-y blue color and red for the windows and headlights, though the red is a bit orangish. I also appreciate the fact that they painted silver on the rims and across the bumper on the front there. So yeah, this truck is not anything super special to me. It's functional, it gets the job done, but Now we can grab Run Over, and there's a little peg hole back here so we can peg him in there, and give Nemesis a little, like, cannon thing. I don't know, it's a place to store the Minicon if you don't want to have him, like, flying or walking next to him in truck mode. So, let's put... No, we don't need to put him that far back. Let's put Nemesis off to the side here so we can do our size comparisons. Here he is with a standard... Oh, let me readjust. Okay. Here he is with our standard deluxes, and yeah, he's... this, I think, you know, Armada, Cybertron, it's about the same-ish time period, only a couple years removed, I think. So it stands to reason that the deluxes would be about the same size. And here he is with the duck tank. Okay, time to turn this truck into a robot. Let's get Runover out of the way there. We'll bring him back later. And now, before I transform him, I do want to say these smokestacks are annoying, or were annoying. I actually ended up putting a little dot of glue, not super glue, just like regular Elmer's glue, on the peg and peg hole that these are pegged to, and just put them on there. And so now you can see they're not popping off. They might if you know, pull and stuff, but they're not shaking off like they were before. So don't have to worry about that happening during transformation. Anyway, let's turn this thing into its robot mode. Here we have Armada Nemesis Prime in his robot mode, and this is a pretty cool looking robot mode. He is very much a truck from the back. There's kind of a scourgy kind of... actually, his whole transformation is very scourgy in the sense that the truck cab, like the actual sitting area, stays on his back, and the front parts of the truck, including the hood and headlights and wheels and all that, come down to make his shoulders. This is a pretty cool looking robot. Unfortunately, I've got an issue with the head on mine where the ball joint is a little bit wrong, so you can see how the head kind of wants to snap back to this weird angle. I mean, you can still pose and also look way, way up and down pretty well, but this is always kind of slightly off, which isn't a huge problem, but can be a little annoying. I guess while we're here, let's take a look at that head, and that is a pretty Optimus Prime head. The head crest is definitely a different shape than what we're used to. This one's a little bit, yeah, but it's, you know, it's still got that same kind of feel to it. It's got the silver faceplate, really nice piercing red eyes, and the darker gray plastic head, obviously, because, you know, Nemesis. And then the telltale kind of ear thingies. Less pronounced than in some other Primes that we've seen, but still cool. The colors on this guy in general are pretty darn nice. I really like the darker gray, which, yeah, it's not black, but it feels darker in robot mode, I think because it's not quite as big a slab of it that you're seeing, because it's broken up by a lot of different colors here. I like the darker gray, I think it works pretty well, and then the little accents of metallic blue and this kind of beige color and the silver and the red, it all comes together very, very nicely. This guy actually has a very similar color scheme to Universe Nemesis Prime, the other one, the second one that we looked at. Maybe there's a reason for that, I'm sure there is. I don't know what that reason is, but they share a color scheme. I don't know. But you'll notice when I transformed him, his little thingies didn't pop off, so yay! Now, might as well go over the gimmick, because why the heck not? Get his arms pointed forward here, and hook up Runover onto the back. And when you use the Minicon and bring it down, you give him like a little... Yeah, I hate it. It's not a good gimmick. I'm not a fan. His little power punch thing is just kind of lame, but it's fine. One thing that does kind of disappoint me with this figure, though, is this. Getting these bits to actually stay in place is way more tricky than it should be. In particular, like, this one's fine, mostly. This one is not so fine. It's this weird thing where when it comes back, you can see it slides pretty freely, but if you push it forward, like not the hinge, but the actual thing on the fist, like there it's loose. But if you bring it up and push it forward, that keeps it from wanting to come down. But the problem is, when you bend the elbow, that sometimes makes that pop down, and then when you're trying to like pose him, then suddenly this is happening, and it's a little annoying. I don't entirely understand why this is happening on just this one arm. Another thing that's kind of, let's say, a shame. It doesn't ruin the figure for me or anything, but a thing that's kind of a shame is the fact that he's got these very prominent silver screws just right there. That's not great. I can look past it, it's just, when you notice it, you really notice it. Detail-wise, is a pretty Optimus Prime-y looking robot man. He's got the shin vents, kind of. I appreciate the fact that when he transforms, the feet kind of tuck up into the shins. So that's a good way of getting him out of the way. And I also like how, despite this guy's age, he's surprisingly posable with the ankle tilts and the motion on the arms, which we've already looked at. I think popping out again. And he's got a waist, which is good. Waists are always good. He is hindered in the legs. Like, I saw this on TJ Omega's video where when you try to bring the legs forward, they're not going forward that far because of that bump up there, and that really sucks. But decent out, decent back. He's got knees and so on. One thing that is a bit of a disappointment with this guy in regards to articulation, even though he's surprisingly well articulated for a figure from this era, is the fact that he does not have thigh swivels. Like, you can swivel the thighs because they're on ball joints, but that's as far as you can go. Better leg articulation than Scourge. He's cool, I like him. He's an atypical Prime, basically. I like that he's not the standard design. He doesn't have the chest windows, he does have the belly grill, but this time it's like the entire torso. And he's got, like I said, the kind of Scourge style fronts of the truck for the shoulders. I think this is cool. I like how different it is, and I really wish we would get different more often. I also think it's cool how, if you move this out of the way, they actually painted the detail in here, which is pretty darn cool. And this whole thing flips up to cover the face, which is why the underside of the vehicle mode was so clean. You can actually see, it looks like there's a transmission molded in there. That's pretty cool. I like how these two panels accordion down to make his chest, but I also like how they sort of lock the front of the truck into vehicle mode. It's very well engineered, very clever design. Bringing back Run Over, we can peg him into his hand to give him a gun of a sort. I don't know that the gun works particularly well. It's just kind of this weird fleshy color compared to the rest of him. I feel like maybe it would have worked better if it was painted a bit more, or if it was a different color, but it gets the job done. It works as an accessory. It's got the silhouette, the shape of a kind of gun, even if it's a little awkward looking. So yeah, these two look pretty decent together. Anyway, let's get Nemesis off to the side here, so we can do our size comparisons once more. Here he is with the standard-ish deluxe crew, and this works. I mean, he is a deluxe size figure, like I said, and from about the same era as Downshift, so it does make sense that they'd be about the same size. And here he is with the duck tank. And that will do it for Armada Nemesis Prime. I definitely have certain gripes about this figure. The little bits, the smokestacks on the forearms, those are easy enough to deal with. The deco, though, looks great. It's just the arms being a little bit weirdly hindered, both in terms of the elbow bend and the fact that these things can kind of pop out of place and slide down. That's a little annoying. The weird hip limitations compared to the rest of the posability on this guy is a bit frustrating. And I think what frustrates me the most is this is an older toy that has articulation that's almost on par with a modern deluxe figure. It just falls short in a few disappointing areas. Not the biggest deal, but it is a little disappointing. This is still a very cool figure, and I love it in these colors. It looks so good as a Nemesis. Anyway, that is going to do it for Transformers Armada Nemesis Prime. Whatever you all think of this thing, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. As always, art is, of course, more than meets the eye. And next time, we're going to be bridging the gap between official and non-official by taking a look at a repainted knockoff.